Hi there and welcome to another edition of TEMA Talk. I'm your host Carl Gibbons, and TEMA Talk is the fast-paced, BS-free zone with smart, fun and educational conversations with entrepreneurs and business owners who've come together to share stories and insights designed to help you succeed. Joining us today is, well, you might think you're in a parallel universe because you're going to be thinking, I've tuned into the wrong program. I've seen this all before.
Worlds collide.
Because worlds collide, because joining us today, you can't do TEMA Talk. I can't do anything like this without having my old mucker, Carl Gould. But you're going to meet and see a side of Carl that hopefully that you've never done before. And I feel very strange calling him Carl, so I'm going to go back to calling him Gould. But anyway, Carl Gould is a mentor, coach, thought leader, author, and CEO. Gould is a worldwide leading authority on business and entrepreneurship, if you didn't already know. His company, 7 Stage Advisors, helps organizations to grow to the next level. He's an entrepreneur who has built 3 multi-million businesses before the age of 40, and 7 Stage Advisors has mentored and launched over 5,000 businesses. Some of the companies that he's helped include Allstate, American Idol, the US Olympic Track, IBM, McGraw-Hill, and if that wasn't enough, Uncle Sam's US Army. He's created the farthest-reaching business mentoring organization in the world, and his methodologies are in practice in 35 countries, and he's trained and certified or accredited over 7,000 business coaches since 2002, and that's the last time I counted, and I ran out of fingers and toes. He's written multiple books on the subject of business growth, including Blueprint for Success, which he co-authored with Stephen Covey and Ken Blanchard. He wrote The 7 Stages of Small Business Success. He wrote Biz Dev Done Right, and of course his bestseller and his best book without a shadow of a doubt, was of course Fix It in 5, which he co-wrote with yours truly. But I am a little biased. So you're not in a parallel universe. You're here, you're on TEMA Talk, and Gouldy, welcome.
Thanks, Gibbons. This is fun. I like the format.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Well, we want to have a bit of fun. We also want to have some educational stuff, and we want to just kick some stuff around. So let's get on with it. Right? An amazing profile. You and I josh all the time, and we take it out of each other and we pull each other's leg all the time. But that is an amazing profile. I take my hat off to you. I've been working with you now, and we've known each other for over 12 years. But you're even bigger than your profile. And anybody that knows you knows that. So I want to know, my overriding question and topic of this conversation is, how the hell do you become bigger than your profile?
Yeah, Gibbons, thanks. I mean, it started out very unintentionally. When I first got into coaching, I mean, my earliest businesses were, I had a landscaping company, a design build landscape firm, and then I had a construction company. They were both very successful companies. They were local businesses. But I got into coaching very early in the game in 1991. And coaching as an industry isn't really what, we know it today. But I got into coaching, and it was my desire to make coaching a full-time business, because I found out I was really passionate about it and that I wanted to do it. So I said, how can I make this a 6-figure business? I never intended to make it a 7-figure business, which it became, but I needed it to become a 6-figure business so I could do it full time. And the average coach at the time that I started coaching made $23,000 a year. And that was a full-time coach, and back then the expression in the coaching industry is that coaches needed a full-time job in order to feed their coaching addiction. Wow. Because you couldn't live on just coaching.
I was going to say my gin and tonic bill's bigger than that.
Yeah, exactly. And I live in New Jersey. How are you going to live on that, have a family, everything? There's no way, right? Yeah. So I had to figure out how can I make this a 6-figure practice? Like if I was an accountant or an attorney or a financial planner, financial advisor, how could I do that? And so in putting that together, I created a methodology that is widely in practice today. And so I started to, word got out that they're saying, well, how are you making this a full-time business? Because at the time I was young, most advisors, you know, the profile of an advisor is a 52-year-old guy or gal in a business suit who came from the business world, sold their business, or was an executive of another company. And here I was in my 20s making a go of it. And then when I started my business full time, I was 35 years old. I was still 15 years younger than the average advisor. Well, what I did, and I'll kind of take you through what I did was, first thing I did was I latched on to the most established intellectual property of the time. So I learned situational leadership by Ken Blanchard, the Franklin Covey time management system, Dale Carnegie leadership, Tony Robbins and his human needs psychology, neurolinguistics programming, and DISC, behavioral technology. So I latched onto that, and one of my colleagues joked with me. He said, "What certification don't you have?" Because I went for every certification I could.
If there was a certificate, you went for it, right?
I went for it. That was my college. That was my coaching college. I went to the Adizes methodology, the Institute for Independent Business, Coachville, Coach University, International Coach Federation, International Association of Coaches, teleclass.com, you name it. I went for all of it.
And of course, it was at the IIB where you and I met.
That's right. That's right. Because I got into simultaneously, I got into recruiting for the IIB, but I also ran their mentoring program. And that's what gave me global exposure.
Right.
But what I did was I said, all right, I'm going to latch myself to every existing intellectual property as a way to get more exposure. And I said, I'm going to build my personal brand out of the exposure I get from these, methodologies. And what I noticed was there was a lot of good information coming out of those organizations, and there were good, what would I say? There were good ideas and there were smart concepts, but I did not feel that there was enough process and a business model to follow. And so I said, I got to make this into a business model. I said, how can I, if I want to make a go of this, I've got to be able to charge at least $250, if not $350 an hour. I've got to have time to prospect. I've got to have time to work my clients. I have to be able to invoice at least $100,000 if I have any goal of doing this as a full-time business. And so I was able to do that, and I was documenting everything I was doing during the 90s, and then I rolled it out as a book. So the 7 Stages of Small Business Success started out as a training manual, and I started to train other coaches who wanted this to be a full-time gig and not just a side hustle.
Right.
So I started to get known for that. And then all the while, so I started to grow beyond just my profile.
Right.
I was not just a coach, but I was the author of a methodology. And so the first 2 things I did was, 1, I latched myself onto other intellectual property that was already established.
Right.
Highly recommend you do that.
Right.
It didn't hurt me being, the Franklin Covey guy, the situational leadership guy, the Carnegie leadership, the Robbins coach, the, trainer, the NLP coach, the DISC coach.
Right.
So I was attached to all of these larger methodologies.
Right. Okay. And is it fair to say at the time that the coaching advisory world, as you said, were full of people really not making a large salary, but actually using it very much as a stopgap? They'd just been laid off, or they decided to leave large corporation, looking for new opportunity, and they were just using it to bridge a gap. They weren't, if you're right, they weren't really serious. I'm not degrading the quality of the work.
No, I get what you're saying.
It was that commitment. It was like, this is how I put food on the table. And we all respect that, right? You have to put food on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say the second part of what you said was more accurate. They weren't serious about it being their business yet, but coaching very much started out as a personal development endeavor. right? What I say is coaches first try to heal themselves. And then because they're heart-led servants and they like to help people, they're there to help others. But they wanted to heal thyself, and then they went out to heal others.
Right.
And so I'm not even so sure people were thinking of it as, oh, I'm leaving my job and I want to do this now and I'm doing this for extra money. I think it started out much more as a passion. Like, what is this coaching thing? This is amazing. It was part personal development and part an opportunity to help others and make money, but nobody had figured it out yet. It really hadn't come of age. So I don't think people were looking to immediately leave their jobs. I think they were saying, what is this? I can do this. I can do this, as part of my personal development. And then once it started to establish itself, then people said, I might be able to actually make a living out of this. So that came later. That came in the late 90s, early 2000s. That's when it really started to pick up. And as you remember, the IIB was really the world leader at the time.
Right. Yeah.
They were the fastest growing and the largest of their kind. They were accrediting up to 80 coaches a month worldwide for 7 years. I mean, they were really an impressive organization. And then there were others that really cropped up and came into their own, like Vistage and Tab and RAB.
Action Coach.
Oh, that's right. Action Coach was an early leader.
Yeah.
They were the first real franchise.
Right.
And then many grew out of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was the tipping point? When did Gould go from, if you like, enthusiastic coach, enthusiastic mentor, enthusiastic helper to now I've got a real business now. Now I've got the systems and process in place. What was that point? Was it a client? Was it a situation? Was it a combination of both? Was it premeditated? By January the 1st, on this date, this has got to be here. What was the tipping point?
Yeah, so for me, the main tipping point was in 2002, late in 2002, when I became the mentoring director for IIB Americas. And what that did was it made me the authority. I'm now the mentor's mentor, right? And then I wrote a book. Okay, a year later, I wrote a book. So I went from practitioner to thought leader, right? And if you're going to become bigger than your profile, you have to be on the other side of the table. And what I mean by that is when you go to a trade show is one of the best examples. When you go to a trade show, if you're walking the floor, you're the practitioner. If you're behind the table in the booth, or you're in front of the room doing the lunch and learn or the breakout session or the keynote, you're now the authority, right? And so one of the ways I chose to build my coaching practice, which I didn't think of at the time as putting me in an authority position. I was just thinking about generating leads.
Right.
But what it did was it did put me in the authority position. And so in the very early going, what I did was, and this is what the early days of Fix It in 5.
Yeah.
I put this little sign. First off, I booked every trade show expo I could that I thought was appropriate for me to be at. Right. I put a little sign that says, I will fix any problem in your business in 10 minutes or less. And essentially I was doing a speed coaching session. Yeah. And people would roll up with the stroller, husband and wife team, 2 kids, and they'll say, okay, I'll bite. I've got a pizza shop. Here's my problem. Or, any problem? Any problem? Any problem? And then I would hear an issue, and then what I would do is a speed coaching session. Right. I would say, what is it you want? Why is it important to you? How are you going to get it done? A traditional coaching session, but it was stripped down, get it done in 10 minutes. Yeah. So now I'm on the other side of the table. All right. And so that was kind of the pivot point. I got into the authority position. But what really made a difference for me was I started to take international clients, right? Now, during the 90s, when I was a coach, I had my landscaping company, I had my construction company thereafter. And I said to all of the referral agencies that were sending me clients, I would say, give me your international clients. And they're like, oh, do you have an interest in international business? I'm like, nope, Got nothing to do with that. I have a 9-to-5 business. So I can coach at lunchtime during the day, but after 5 and before 9 a.m. So after 5, I could coach Australia, New Zealand, Asia.
Right. Yeah.
And then early in the morning, I could coach England, Europe, South Africa. And that's where the pockets of personal development and gurus at the time were. So almost all of my clients were international. And then over time, over the next few years, I started to get speaking and training opportunities. And I took them. And I took every single one. I would fly to England to do a 1-hour presentation. I went to the Netherlands. I went to Pakistan. I've been to 68 countries at this point. And
so you would literally turn up to the opening of an envelope. I mean, like,
exactly. And I was that guy, right? And it was funny because I was listening to there's this very popular comedian right now, Eliza Schlesinger, and I really enjoy her comedy, and she's on Netflix and very popular. And I watched a recent interview with her on Jimmy Kimmel, and because she's in her first, I would say, major motion picture. She's got a supporting role in a Mark Wahlberg movie coming up, right? And she said, I auditioned for that. And so she goes, I go to the audition, and I'm paraphrasing her story, but basically, on her way to the audition, she drove past a place. Oh, sorry. On her way to the audition, she drove past a place. She goes, I drove past this place that I worked years ago. I had to drive 3 hours on my own, and I performed to like 15 people. It was this dink little place, crappy gig, but I took it because as a comedian, you want to make a name, you take it, right? And that's what I did too. So I remember I drove through a rainstorm to speak at a little meeting, and there were 4 people, that showed up to this thing. And it was funny because 2 of them ended up becoming clients, per capita, one of my best meetings ever. But, they were like, Carl, you didn't have to come. You didn't have to kill yourself to get here. And I was like, yeah, I did, because the world later on, nobody cares how many people are in the audience after the gig is over.
Right.
You do Facebook Live and there's one person on it. The only time you care is while you're on Facebook Live and there's one person. Later on, nobody cares. Right? What they care is you're providing value, you're on the other side of the table. So I took every opportunity. I was in Australia. I was everywhere. And that's what really did it,
Cheryl says something interesting to me once, and we've both been there, right? Where the event organizer, packed room, it's standing room only, and you turn up and there's me, you, the cat, the dog,
right?
And we've had that. And let's all be fair, we all have a little bit of the really, like really, And on more than one occasion, Cheryl has said to me, the most important people are in the room. They're the ones that turned up. They're the ones that showed up. Right?
You're there for the people that came, not for the people that didn't
come. Yeah.
Right. So, I can't help them, but I know what it takes for me to get there.
Yeah.
So that means everybody in that room had to rearrange their schedules, maybe put out some money, get a babysitter.
Yeah.
They're sleeping in a hotel. It's equally as inconvenient for them as it is for me. So I'll be honest with you. I don't care. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to play to an empty room. I want the place packed. But I don't, once it's go time, for me, if there's 2 or 2,000,
step on and step up, right?
Let's go.
Yeah,
let's go.
I hear you. Well, I mean, that takes us back to the early days of Quick and Get Rich. We'd be broadcasting, and we didn't know whether it was you and I talking to ourselves or whether we got any listeners. I mean, as it turned out, we built a listenership, but the principle is exactly the same. Was there a gig? Was there one gig that you got that was also a turning point? Like, now I know I've got it, and I'm not belittling, if you like, the mom and pop with the pizza shop and the stroller, because clients are clients, everybody has a job. But was there a particular project that you got, an account that you got that you thought, yeah, now I know I'm being taken seriously. This is for real. This is a $10 million company that's putting its faith in me.
So, so there were a couple. And when I was coaching in the 90s, I got assigned through one of my referral agencies, one of the gentlemen that reorganized IBM and launched the BCS arm of IBM when they restructured. And I was one of the main, I was his coach for 6 months during that time. And so that, and at that person, I was assigned to that person because I was the main entrepreneur in the group, in the coaching group. Remember, especially in those days, coaching was 75, 80% women, 25% men. And even to this day, more of the life coaching is more women, more of the business coaching is more men. I just the way it's shaped out. One not more capable than the other, just for the way people have taken it. And so I was the entrepreneur because I started my first business at 18, and I was, even though I was 30 years old, I still had 10 years of entrepreneurship. And I used to get the business guys. So I get this business guy, and I was known as the hard ass accountability coach. And, I was so psyched to coach this guy. I would let him do whatever he wanted. And I remember he gave me terrible feedback in the beginning. I thought you said this guy was good. I thought he would hold me accountable. And I remember calling him back after getting the feedback and apologizing and saying, you know what, you're right. I said, I was too lax in some of these boundaries, and you deserve better. I said, how about we start over? And he's like, that sounds great. And so I set this deal up. One of his things was time management. And so we set up this accountability measure where I had him send me 12. I asked him, what is a charity or an organization that you would never want your name associated with? He was a Jewish guy. And he said, he was like, well, I'm not sure what you mean. I said, think about it. What is the most hideous, horrible, make your skin crawl organization that if your name was ever associated with it, it would drive you crazy? And he said, well, the Nazi Party.
Right.
And I said, okay, well, that makes sense. I said, I want you to send me 12 checks made out to the Nazi Party. And for the next 12 weeks, we have these accountability measures. And I said, here's the deal. If you miss any one of your activities, and he had to text me every day by a certain time. I said, if I receive that text late, I'm going to mail the check straight to them. And your name, you're going to donate money to the Nazi Party as a Jewish guy. Right. And so he was late one day, and I mailed the check, and he threw a fit, and he called the organization that referred me and said, I can't believe this, da, da, da. And to their credit, they said to him, well, what was the reason? Why does he have a check to the Nazi Party in your name? Well, we set up this accountability measure, and if I was late, he gets to send it. And he said, well, were you late? He goes, but just a couple minutes. Like, but you were late.
Yeah.
And he sent it. Well, what do you want us to do? You want accountability. This is what it looks like. So to thank, and I won an award for that. I won an award as a coach for that in the very early going. So that gig was important. And then I made a handshake, literally a napkin bet with the principal of IIB. When I became the mentoring director for the Americas, I instituted a phone-based mentoring program because I learned from phone-based coaching. Yeah. He said, why would you change what we have? The rest of the IIB world, we have an in-person mentoring program that works the best. And I said, I believe mine's better. And he said, so I bet him that whichever mentoring program was more successful in the next 12 months, and we had a couple of very tangible ways to measure that. If I win, I get the global program. Right. And so our program was 371% more effective than the global program after 1 year. And so he reneged on his bet, and he basically copied my process and gave it to the global director of the rest of the global director. And he said, mimic this program. And after a year, it did not do very well. So a year later, he opened it up for a bid, and I won the bid. So now I had this
You
global.
brought back your own idea.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, Carl, good idea I've got, by the way. Start a phone-based program. And so I did that, and I went from one country to 35 countries overnight. And we had built what became the farthest reaching business mentoring organization in the world because of our reach, not because of our size, because we were in so many different
I
places.
understand. Yeah.
So once that happened, I was on the map at that point. I mean, I was now
it was yours to lose. It was yours to lose.
Exactly. Right. And then a couple of years later, I had the opportunity to co-author a book with Stephen Covey and Ken Blanchard.
There you go. All right. Let's go to what the quick fire round. Let's find out a little bit more about Gould. Find out what makes him tick. Best piece of business advice you've ever been given.
Best piece of business advice I've ever been given. Best personal advice: 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in that ratio. Best business advice is dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Biggest screw up you've ever made in business.
Biggest screw up I ever made in business. Generally speaking, I never thought big enough, especially early in early going. Biggest screw up I had is when I had my landscaping company. I instituted a program that was so successful. I actually shut down the core part of my business because I was running it. I didn't think to run both businesses, which I could have done, and I just missed that.
Okay.
Just totally.
So talking of books, which book has had the biggest influence on you and in your business?
What one that I've read?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, the book. So the Celestine Prophecy was probably the most impactful book that I read for me personally. It's a book based on, basically when the student is ready, the teacher shows up.
Right.
Yeah. So, I read it at a time where I was like, where the hell do I go? And the book just kept saying, listen, whatever's in front of you, you're ready for it. So just jump on it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
What are you reading now or listening to?
What am I reading? Gosh, I'm reading, yeah, it's a good one. What am I listening to? So I'm listening to a podcast called Bigger Pockets, which is a real estate one. I like the Joe Rogan Experience. That's a good one. I'm reading a number of books on sales. The Machine I've read, which is a good one. And Under the Scarlet Sky, about a World War II refugee who escapes northern Italy. That was pretty good.
Okay. What's your most marked characteristic? What do you think is your most marked characteristic?
My most marked characteristic?
Yeah.
I think people note me as the energy guy.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what, those guys always got a ton of energy.
Yeah. What trait do you most deplore in yourself?
Lack of patience.
Okay. What do you consider the most overrated virtue?
My overrated virtue, which is generally speaking.
Generally,
overrated virtue, positivity.
Okay. What do you most value in a friend or business colleague?
The fact that they're a wingman. I had a really good friend in college where I never had to explain myself. I said, I need you. He's like, done. Let's go.
Okay. Least favorite business word?
Can't.
Most favorite business word?
Let's roll.
All right. Okay. What's your favorite hero of fiction?
My early hero was Snoopy for his creativity. Okay. I used to love that. Like, everything was possible for Snoopy. I kind of like Iron Man. The modern day Iron Man can transform and become a lot of different things all at once. So those are good. Stick with those.
All right. Does Gould want to be in control or in charge?
In charge.
Why?
I seem to have an intuition that when I'm right, I know I'm right. I don't need to be in control. I don't even need to get the fanfare. But if I had to choose between the two, I don't even need to be in charge. But I would have picked in charge over control. I'm not a control freak. I'm more in charge.
Most treasured possession?
I have a propeller from a boating trip I took when I was 7 years old with our family. I still have that to this day. I'm not a collector much, but I've held on to that for now 45 years.
Okay. What word or phrase do you most overuse?
Real quick.
And
Say it all the time.
And what one do you think is most overused in business in general? What's the one that really makes you screen cool? You know,
In business, overused expression. Squirrel.
okay.
Cannot stand that.
All right. For me, it's I've got to say this pivot thing. It's really getting on my nerves.
Yeah.
We've got to pivot for everything. Let's go for an ice cream. Yeah, we can pivot over that one.
We could pivot. No, just hit your blinker and turn left. Not a pivot. Let's not overdo it. Yeah.
Okay. What frightens Gould?
What frightens me most is not that I wouldn't reach my potential, that I wouldn't give it enough of a go to reach my potential.
All right. Okay. Last one. If this program can connect you with anybody, prime minister, prince, potentate, dictator, business leader, CEO, Fortune 500, who do you want? Who do you want to watch it and then pick up the phone and say, get me Gould?
The leader of a major business news network.
Okay.
So I think I have a lot to offer, and my insights would help a lot of people, and I need the platform to get out to a lot of people quick.
Call him right now. He's good fun to work with. I'll tell you that for free. If nothing else, he's good fun to work with. All right, that's it, Gouldy. You've heard it all before. You've heard it here. I can't thank you enough because I know how busy you are. But that's it, guys and gals. Another 30 minutes of business banter and badinage has gone. Thanks to our guest, Carl Gould, and my old mucker here. I want to thank the team at Guerrilla Media for twiddling all the knobs and making all of this happen. I want to thank you for watching and tuning in. And don't forget, visit TEMA's video vault of wisdom at thirdeyemanagement.com, and where we share all the other TEMA talks and episodes on strategies and tactics on how you can grow your business. So until the next time, I want you to stay safe. I want you to stay happy. I want you to stay in touch, but most of all, I want you to stay profitable. And with that, this is Carl Gibbons and Carl Gould for the first time on TEMA Talk. We are out.